We had an interesting conversation about, what do we talk about, and what do we feel like maybe we don't need to talk about. And I think that sometimes when you talk about Kundalini and Shaktipat, there's a lot of talk about spiritual experiences on the plus side. I remember when I was young, I used to read these books. We call them a book of miracles. And I found them very inspiring to hear all these stories about people who were on the path and the things that had happened to them. And I know that when Marc and Larry's podcast, sounds like a plug, when that comes out, I always want to have a listen to it because I am fascinated to hear about those things. But on the minus side of it, there is a feeling that sometimes people go, well, why don't these things happen to me? And also sometimes I feel like if I talk about those things, I'm boring people because, who really wants to know about my spiritual experiences? But we're here today talking about Kundalini awakening and integration. So I wanted to talk about my awakening and I wanted to talk about my integration. Larry was great because he laid out something which was sometimes the awakening happens before the initiation. So you have an awakening that draws you to the guru. After the awakening, you go, I need to find a guru now. I've realized. So that's what happened to me when I was 13. When I was 13, I had an experience in my backyard at home. And in essence, it's sort of Christian. I grew up as a Catholic. And for a 13-year-old, you don't want to see as what Larry described, the bells and whistles. It's maybe too much for a 13-year-old. So I started crying. And the more I cried, the more I felt like all these tears that were coming down my face were sort of somehow washing my ego and making it lose its arrogance. And I know there's a lot of people listening here who would have had that experience. If you go deep into that feeling in your heart, the tears can just come. And the more they come, the more you feel, I'm just having a little private conversation with something that's here. And when we had the last discussion about 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, I talked about in the heart, we have two things. We have a source of unlimited love, which is recognized in all cultures. And in yoga, we also have the notion that this is where the ego has it sits there. So that's why we say, I want it. Because the ego is there too. So what actually happened in that moment that I feel looking back on it now is that this limited sense of my heart, Leo, let's call him Leo, and this unlimited sense of my heart, which is the love that exists there, started to have a conversation. And I can actually remember what I said, Leo said to the love that I kind of could just feel there as I was crying. And I said to myself, I'm sorry I left it so long in this life to have this conversation with you. That conversation is something that I can actually take with me in every day that is so far away from all of that other stuff, the bells and whistles, the fantastic experiences, because all of those things happen. But to be honest, I find them very hard to relate to. And if anything like that ever happens to me, I actually find it kind of puts me off going on a steady path. So my prayer from Leo to the love is, please can I not have too much of Kundalini experiences that I do not understand. So it's a sort of a request from my sadhana to receive it in a way that I can get, so that I can do practical things with it. So I want to talk about two instances of that. And one is, well, here we are in this Zoom meeting. Where did that come from? Well, I had a dream about a few months ago. And in the dream, there was this old dusty hall. Like, imagine before, you know, nowadays everything's fixed up. They put wood paneling and they put lovely glass everywhere, and there's chrome rails and all that stuff, and brass doorknobs. And think back in your mind, or what you might have seen in a film, some dusty old hall that had never been fixed up. And it was dark in there, and there were a whole lot of people who were meditating. And Baba was going around, and he was attending to everyone who was in that hall, and he was giving them a bit of a boost. And then there was a break from what was happening, the meditation in that hall, and I went into a little room next door, which was like a chai shop. And in the chai shop was Mary, Leo, Marc, and Larry. So I rang them up and I said, hey, listen, I had this dream. You want to get together and start having a chat? And that has turned into this Zoom monthly meeting. So that's something I can get onto. That's something I can understand. That's something that I can act on. And along the same lines, the way that I met Mary is a very interesting story, because many people know I chant the Guru Gita 7 days a week. I love it. You're all invited. gurugita.com. That is a plug. And I made a recording in Ganeshpuri about 8 years ago now, and that's on YouTube. But a lot of people listen to that, and eventually I thought, you know what, I'll make some CDs. Some people still like CDs. It's just another way for people to get it if they want to. And last year, about a year ago, I was due to go to New York, and I had an idea in my mind somewhere, not fully formed, that when I was in New York, I would do a presentation of a concert that I do called From Now On. And I hadn't done anything about it. And I realized, you know, it's two days before I go to New York, and I've done nothing. So I had this conversation. I brought it into the temple, and I said, okay, I kind of feel like I'm supposed to do this. I'm just going to leave that with you because I'm ready to go. Half an hour later, I get an email, and it's an email from Mary. I'd never met Mary before this. And the email said, oh, I'm trying to buy a copy of your CD. And so I got in touch with her because she was trying to buy it through PayPal. PayPal said she's having a problem with the website. Here you go. Here's her email address. So I got in touch with her, and we had a bit of a chat and realized that we were from the same tradition. And I said, I can just send you a copy of the CD. Where do you live? And she said, New York. And I said, I'm getting on a plane to come to New York. And then when I got to New York, we had a bit of a chat on the phone. She said, I can only meet you on Thursday. So, of course, I meet her on Thursday, and I give her a copy of the Guru Gita. And it's at her meditation class. She said, come to my meditation class. We'll meet there. You know, you can meet the group of people, and you can meet some people. And then she told a story. And the story was, and Mary's got a lot of stories like this. She said that back in the 70s, she was on the list to become a Swami in Baba's ashram. Something took her away from that. I think she ended up back in the States. She then discovered that she had a desire to have children. And she was disturbed by that because she'd made this promise to Baba to be a Swami. So she wrote, of course, Larry would have replied or read that letter. Yeah. And the reply came back from Baba: chant the Guru Gita twice a day for 16 days.
That's right.
And that was something she went, great, I love the Guru Gita, I'm going to do that. So she did that. And then she has some faith. Maybe she went, okay, I've done that. I've followed the Guru's direction. Subsequently, she had a child, her first son, and he was actually born on her birthday.
That's correct.
And then subsequently, she had another child, her second son, who was also born on her birthday. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mary said to me, I've met you for the very first time, and today's my birthday.
Yeah.
So these signs are also a way that things can happen. You know, sometimes, you know, you can see a light, you can hear a sound or whatever. Those sorts of things, I want less of that. I always come back to the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna says to Krishna, okay, just show me what you're made of. And then he gets a vision of the universal form.
Yeah.
And it's too much. And what does he say? He says, not that. Please make it stop. Show me something I can relate to.
Yeah.
Bringing you back to this initial awakening in my backyard, you know, to me, it really comes back to what Marc was saying about the heart. That's the battlefield in the Bhagavad Gita to me. And I feel that two things. Also what Larry was saying, this inward turning, it's got two aspects to it. It's like Leo says, show me the love. But then Leo also says, can you make Leo more full of that love? Larry was talking about all these different levels that there are in Shaktipat. And I'm going to touch on something that it says in the Bhagavad Gita, because I always go back to it, you know, this idea that there is enjoyment and liberation. And they're both valid. And some people are more orientated towards the enjoyment, even after the awakening. But when I think about myself, I think it's impossible for me to have the space to do this contemplation of love, or to find the time to, in my life, to chant the Guru Gita every day, unless those things are sorted out. And what things am I talking about? Protection from the bad karmas that I may have done in the past. You know, there's a lot of things that can come to you in your life that are distracting, and that you have to go through. Some of it you have to go through, but to a certain extent, I sort of want some protection, you know, which is along the lines of when you sort of say, look, you know, can you please look after me, God? And then I need to be provided for, you know, like I find if there isn't some fruit that comes to me in a sort of an easier way than if I really have to work my heart out, then it's very hard for me to have the space. And then I need to do the contemplation. And then last of all, I need to then have the ability to feel the magnetism. So I was talking about the Kundalini being like the inner magnet.
Yes.
Those two poles between who I think I am, Leo, and who I feel I am, which is a lot of love. What is the Kundalini? The Kundalini is the magnetism that draws me towards that. Because it says in the Bhagavad Gita that those are the 4 reasons that people come to the study of that. Please provide for me. Please protect me. Who are you? And lastly, that magnetism. And I feel that all of those things are important. I actually don't feel like one is superior to the other. I feel like they are all part of the awakening and a necessary thing for us to have. I mean, controversially, I always mention that it is Kali Yuga. And I know we're in the Shaivite tradition, but I've been to Kali Mat in Maharashtra, and I've seen the Murti there. And I think we always need to remember what Kali looks like. And if you go and see Kali, Shiva is unconscious on the ground. And she's got a foot on his chest. And, so I have a lot of respect for the goddess. And I feel that, to have that conversation going is definitely the way forward for me. I sort of sometimes feel like when it comes down to day-to-day sadhana and practice, that some of us kind of feel I don't have time for that. And I think my answer to that is that I always feel like that when I don't practice. Just in terms of faith, I tell a funny story because when I arrived in India, I think it was 2 years ago on that trip, and I was taking a car from Mumbai up to the Gurudev Nityananda's ashram in Gujarat. And they sent a driver down from the village. And it wasn't the driver that I used to normally use because he'd retired and he was doing some other work now. So I get in the car, we're driving up the highway. It's a main highway up the west coast of India, and there's a lot of traffic on that highway. And there's families living in the middle of the road, and, it's a very Indian situation. And anyway, we come over a hill, and I see that there is a traffic jam as far as the eye can see. And I thought, oh, that's not good because it probably means there's a terrible car crash and someone's died. That's what I thought. Okay, what came to mind. So the driver goes, oh, okay. He goes over the other side of the road and he's on the opposite side of the main highway. And we're going straight into the traffic on the right-hand side of the road. So, they travel on the left. And so we're driving straight into the traffic, up the highway, down the freeway, and he's beeping the horn and he's flashing the lights, right? And I've been in India a lot, and I went, well, I'm in for one hell of a ride here. So we're driving like this for about 18 minutes or something like that. And then we get up to the end of the great big traffic jam on the other side of the road, and there's a horrible crash, which I didn't look at. And then he goes over the other side of the road, and then we're back on the highway. And I was in the back. I didn't say anything until we got to that point, and I said, "Good driving." You wouldn't want to wish that upon yourself, or even understand why that might be the case, unless you're a person who went to India every year and just realized that that's part and parcel of being in India. But that faith, I might have been doing a lot of japa in the back, I can tell you, but that sense of faith driving into that mad traffic was something that made me feel very happy about being back in India, and also made me feel how good it is to surrender. And ultimately, I think that the Kundalini is about developing that relationship so that you can get to the point of surrender, so that you feel really comfortable about letting go who you think you are for a moment. That might be in deep meditation, where you completely say, okay, I've got a cup, it's full of seawater, I'm going to chuck it in the sea. So the seawater out there, the seawater in here, it's all the same seawater. Way you go. But also sometimes it's just in your day going, I don't mind driving into the traffic because I'm going to surrender in that way right now. Or it could be going, I had a dream. I'm going to ring Mary and Larry and Marc and see what happens. Something's supposed to happen. I'm now just putting down the very bottom the address for Guru Gita, because the Guru Gita is the Guru in the form of sound. And as Mary would say, it's a lot of fun. I feel it creates a lot of space in my life. If you don't know the chant, that's okay. You can have a cup of tea and a piece of toast while you have it on, and you watch the birds in the backyard. That's also incredibly beneficial to bring that sound into your home. We go to a center, we have a great experience, and I do that every year, a couple of times, right? But to bring all of that energy into your home with practice and with chanting, to bring the sound of that energy into your space, that's a really good move.